Welcome to Sex and Breakfast, the sexy way to start your day. Dishing out sexpert advice and spicy insights about sex, love, and everything in between. Hosted by sex coaches and therapists from around the globe. Today, we're cooking up a sneak peek of the life working in sexual health from sex coaches to professional dominatrixes. We'll break down who does what and how to find the right person for you.
Hi, everyone. In this episode, we're going to take a deep dive into the weekly life of a sex coach and explore the broader landscape of professionals working in sexual health and wellness. So from sex coaches to professional dominatrixes, we'll break down who does what, how they overlap, and how to find the right one to fit your needs. So each of us here in this room, we're all sex coaches and we've all graduated from Sex Coach U. But before and during our training at Sex Coach U, some of us has added on different modalities or also have lived experiences in the BDSM world. And all of that informs our work as a sex coach. So I'd love to hear from each of you, and I'll go first. Kind of what a typical week is for me as a sex coach, because a lot of people compare us to therapists, and the therapy model. A lot of people draw this image of a therapist is in this office and they're in this client grind, right? Or if you think of a gynecologist, they're in a clinic. But sex coaches have a little bit more fluid way of moving about the professional sphere. And for me, I wear a couple different hats. Bring up Sex Coach U again. I'm still faculty with Sex Coach U, so I very much am in an educator role, and I stay connected to students and graduates through that world. But I also run my own private practice. And for me, running my own private practice has been primarily online. And there's benefits in to both being brick and mortar and having an office, and definitely to being online. So for me, I'm available virtually, and I think a lot of people globally appreciate this. And a lot of us professionals moved online during the pandemic, but then stayed because of you can do sex coaching sessions from the comfort of your home. And that can be really comforting for the client because they can be cozy and feel safe and not have to go into an office to meet us. And besides that, if I'm not going through my educator stuff and I'm not seeing a client privately, I also recently began seeing clients through Maven Health Clinic. And I mentioned Maven Clinic because it's one of the first that I've seen. It's a women's fertility and family health clinic that recognizes sex coaches. And in another episode, we were talking about how, unfortunately, insurance doesn't cover sex coaching and sex therapy very often, but a few health companies are just starting to. And so I encourage people to, even if they have doubts that there wouldn't be coverage, check into their medical benefits, because we're starting to gain more traction in these realms. So, but yeah, zooming back out, sex coaches, we operate on many different ways. And so going in and out of clients, I'm going to pause there because I want to hear from each of you and get a taste for your specialties and the different hats that you wear.
Yeah, so my background in the sexual arena before I got certified as a sex coach was as an online operator working with rape, domestic violence, and people around sexual trauma. And so I kind of bring that to the table. And so the main people that I focus my practice on is women, and I'm more trauma informed. I also work with women who need more sex education, that feel uncomfortable around their sex lives and or their bodies, and I do occasionally work with men, and a very small group of couples. But my day to day life, because of my background with women, is I love when I'm not online, and because again, COVID, I would say all my clients are online, and I do miss seeing people one on one. So I do love to host women's circles, and those look very different depending on if I'm hosting one with someone else, or through a yoga studio, or if I'm hosting them on my own. And they range from doing yoni steamings and a lot more like woo woo stuff about like connecting to your bodies and connecting to your sensuality. And so I do those as well, not weekly, but locally in California. And then when you don't see me doing that, I am also a private flight attendant. And so one of the joys of doing online coaching is I can work with anyone in the world, but I can also be anywhere in the world. So I also fly. And so that keeps my life very dynamic. And I have days when I fly, and I have days when I talk about sex all day. And so it's very exciting and dynamic to kind of be in both realms. And that's kind of what it looks like for me in my personal practice.
I love that you mentioned women's circles and the retreat model. Um, I find that that can be a very uh, economical way to experience this work, because depending on the type of retreat you go to, um, you can you can kind of budget. Maybe you can't sign up for a full package of coaching at this time, but you can look into a weekend with a coach that you really resonate with, and then maybe plan out some work there. And then the benefit of, I think, working in this group space, while you don't get that private time necessarily that you get with a sex coach in a one-on-one session, you benefit so greatly from being in the space with other women or other couples or other humans, let's just say, because you're witnessing their process, and they're holding space for you, just as the facilitator, in this case you, is holding space for the whole group in that beautiful container. So thank you for mentioning that. I'm so happy to hear that you're doing work in California that way. So I would love to hear from Dominique.
Yes. So I, in the past, have done retreats with groups of women also, but there was more creative retreats. And then would have my clients come on the retreats and then work with them one on one. So that was fun. But now I just work with clients online, usually in the evenings on Pacific time. So they could literally be anywhere in the world. It could be morning their time, but it's night my time. And I also feel that uh, it works within my lifestyle. I mostly work with couples now. Those are just the types of people that have been seeking me. And I love it because I really like working with the dynamic of couples, whether it's male and female, male, female, female, it doesn't matter to me. So just couples wanting to enhance their sex lives. And I also have a regular job as well during the day. I'm a teacher, but I use a different name. And one of my passions is sex education. So, really wanting to transform sex education for the youth is a big thing for me, high school in particular, because that's my jam. That's the group that I work with. But it's important to me that they also be educated. So at night, because I'm seeing these couples, and like Nicole, there's a sense of education that's still needed. Whether the men don't know what the women's bodies, as well as the women don't even know their own bodies as well. I feel like it's important to educate them. It's just part of our job as sex coaches, right? So yeah, I don't think there's anything else I want to add. I mean, I have in the past done dominatrix work as well. When I heard you say PDSM, I was like, oh, as a former pro dom, but that was in the past. But yeah, I but I also like helping couples who are interested in that and adding that to their repertoire, so to speak.
I love that. I love that, Dominique. And that phrase, pro dom, I know it's really common for us in this room to, we know what that means, but unpacking that for just a moment. Pro dom is short for professional dominatrix. And so this is what I consider definitely a high level professional in their own right, that's kind of outside of the certification sphere and academic sphere, but just as valid, and something that we can definitely, as sex coaches, refer out to depending on what the goals are of the client. So that's awesome that, though that's not something that you do now, you have experience in it and you can speak from a place of knowledge and education with your clients. So awesome. And Dion, tell us what you do.
Hmm. Yes. So before I enter this field of sex coaching and sex therapy, my baseline qualification and experience as an art psychotherapist slash art therapist. So I started with that, and I used to work in an acute mental health hospital setting with specialization in eating disorder. And I love the art therapy component of it, and I infuse the different modalities, like if you heard psychodynamic psychotherapy, this is a psychotherapy that looks into your past and how the past um, inform what happened in the future. So it's a bit like excavation um, in the crude way. Also death psychology, where we also infuse the spiritual aspect of our life and the past. We're looking into the shadow aspect, um, and of course the art therapy modalities is also varied. I do sand play modalities. It's quite fun. Sometimes if you are so stuck with, I don't know what to draw, okay, um, pick some toys or symbols from my collection of Sandtray figurines, and for example, if I'm stuck with, I don't know what my sex issue is, but then when they see the collection of toys I have, they say, "Oh, this is it." I feel like it's like butterfly, you know. So they pick up the butterfly and we dialogue with the butterfly. So it can be very enriching in the sense of expanding on your understanding of your issues and unblock certain things. Other than that, if you are happen to be in Singapore, I have an office, so you can see me face to face. Other than that, for non-Singaporean, I do see my clients online, but on the capacity as a coach normally. But I think that's because of the confinement of where I live and the yeah, for the legality, etc. So yes, so I straddle between both the coaching and the therapy, back and forth.
So you're probably the most equipped compared to all of us in answering the question, what's the difference between a therapy and coaching? Now, I'm not necessarily going to put you on the spot unless you have a quick answer, but that's one we always get, and I like to say, I mean, there is somewhat of a Venn diagram. So
Mm.
during discovery calls, I try and tell clients it's not your job to guess what part of your story falls under the wheelhouse. We are trained as sex coaches to differentiate between the two. Do you have a little package nugget
Yes.
for us,
Uh,
Dion, between the
uh,
two?
it's a crude explanation, but I think with if you have that background in psychotherapy, for example, I can only speak for myself because I have a background in psychotherapy as a sex therapist. I can really go back and look over the past. So, for example, there's this shameful part of the sexual issue. I can go back to the past and I can ask, okay, that part that feels shameful, how old that part feels. Oh, that part is perhaps 8 years old. What happened when you were 8 years old? So we can really dig into that
Mm.
aspect of it, because I have, it's within my scope of training and my scope of practice. But I also appreciate how sex coach work, in whereby, okay, we acknowledge that there was a past, um, that 8 years old shameful past came from that. And then what I like it is how sex coaching will find a way to reframe it and move clients towards the future. Um, does that make sense,
Yeah,
Madeline?
totally.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we work as a sex coach, right? It's like, okay, we acknowledge that 8 years old, and then looking back, as a big sister that you are right now, what would you say to the 8 years old, so that we can both move forward in the future? So yeah. So
And the way you described it helps to illustrate the way that a sex coach and a sex therapist can definitely work together. Sometimes I've seen them working in tandem, but often it's okay, acknowledgement that there's something to work on with a therapist, refer out to a sex therapist or a different type of therapist. They do the work there, and then they come back
mhm.
to me or another fellow sex coach and say, okay, now that you've done that work over there, let's look towards the future. So this is kind of one way that your journey of self-discovery in the sexuality realm can look through these two modalities. So
Yeah. So I mean, to add to that, sometimes I get referral from psychologists, psychotherapists, and then I work solely as a coach capacity. And so I will tell them, oh, so that shows up. Okay, you really need to bring that aspect to in with your psychotherapist, psychologist, and really work on it. So yeah, so that can work as well.
I like to tell my clients, because I am a sex coach, I'm not a sex therapist. And like the elevator pitch of basically what you said is, sex therapy does tap into the past and wants to understand why and kind of work through those things. And I'm more focused on the present, here and now, and how to get you to your future goals. It's more futuristic instead of understanding the past and why and how did this come to be.
and I recently heard it described, and I think this could be a little rough description as well, but it covers another angle. Is therapy a lot of times brings you from dysfunction to function, and coaching can bring you from your baseline to joy and expansion. And it's not exactly, there's definitely, we meet as sex coaches people that are below baseline in unmet needs, but I think that's a way of kind of describing the directions: dysfunction to function and baseline to joy. So okay, between the four of us, whew, what a powerhouse! We bring a lot of different modalities and strengths and personal experiences, and we're at that tip of the iceberg. There's too much to go over, but I want to shift gears, and since I know a lot of listeners are healers themselves or other professionals similar to ours. We expend so much energy taking care of our clients, and also they take up pieces of our mind in our daily lives. Oh, I see something and I want to recommend this to the client, I have to remember this. So I see you nodding your head, Dominique. um, how do we heal the healer? Like, how do we practice what we preach? How I want to hear your top one or two ways that you hold yourself accountable for the very things that you're telling your clients to do for themselves. Because who's watching us? Who's coaching us?
I have a daily energy practice that I do in the morning, in the afternoon, evening, to help kind of clear my energy and kind of reset. Um, and then, after calls with clients and after I teach students, I do an energy reset, which for me is really helpful. It's essentially a meditation practice I just do for 5 minutes. And then I do walking meditations, and it's usually anywhere from 20 minutes to like a couple hours. It depends on how much time I have, really. And then the other thing I do is just really be mindful of when I'm putting lotion on my body, whether it's my face or my legs or arms. I have this practice where I'm like mindful, okay, I'm putting lotion and just giving love to this part of my body. And then my favorite thing to do, and I only allow myself to do it just for monetary reasons. Like every season is ideal, but it's been like twice a year, is to just get full body massages and facials and go to hot springs because that's what's healing for me.
Love that. Ooh, my body was like tingling. I was like, okay, I can tell I haven't done enough of that.
Right?
The way I'm responding to
Ugh.
your description. So, mental note, Norlin.
Yes, it's super juicy and necessary, whether it's diving into an ocean, like when I go to Hawaii,
Mm.
which I go to a couple times a year, diving into the ocean, or going in hot springs, like this immersion of and cleansing that is necessary for, I think, healers.
Definitely, one of it is regular supervision. As a registered, I'm still registered with my art therapy license. We need to have minimum 1 hour supervision for every 15 hours client contact. Um, yeah,
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
but but also different modalities require you to have different supervisions as well. So I have various different supervisors. So I do see them regularly. But aside from the clinical work, oh my goodness, I need my walk. I just need to move my body. I mean, self care doesn't have to be expensive. Really, just walk and listen to something funny, or and read something that's not related to the field. Read something silly, something that makes me giggle. Watch stupid stuff. Yeah, and also daily spiritual practice. That's really important for me because that really the grounding, my anchor as well. So yeah, so that's what I do. Um, yeah, and also there's this thing called in the business and on the business. So the supervision stuff is really about the clinical work. But then, what do I do? I also do things for the business, like all the marketing, accounting, all that kind of thing. It does take
Oh
up
my goodness.
your right. We are one women band show, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the more we need to self care plus 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 plus.
I really took this question on a more micro level because you both answered it, on the daily. But something that I do more on a larger scale is one of the things that I am committed to continuing is my education and my awareness of what's going on in the community. And so I attend Aspects, which is designed for sexologists, sex coaches, sex therapists, sexological body workers, counselors, therapists, and other people in the sexological realm. And it's really a place for us to have a self journey around peers and to kind of have it's like a retreat to expand our awareness, but really just to be around other people and understand different modalities. And for me, it really refuels me and excites me about being in the industry I'm in, because so much of my daily practice is just like one-on-one, and I don't get to see other people that are in this world. And I do those retreats as much as I can. I'm also a part of at this current moment, I'm part of two different support groups, and they're kind of they're both for practitioners, and one of them I meet once a month online, and everyone is from all over the world, and we really just talk about ethics and our practices, and supporting each other as sex coaches. And the other group I'm in is a group of sex coaches and therapists, and we meet more of as accountability partners, and that really helps strengthen and sharpen me personally. We also can kind of talk about our practices as far as learning and understanding, but it's really more like a support group for me. And because again, this is sometimes this can feel like a very like lonely one-on-one industry that I'm in. And so those are some things that I personally love that are part of my heal the healer journey as a sex coach.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And this kind of circles back around to the benefits that your attendees at the retreats you run, the benefits they get of witnessing others in their personal journeys is just like us. We need support and witnessing and holding space as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as marketing managers when we're doing that one woman show type deal. And that is invaluable. Getting to know that you've got this container that meets quarterly or once a month and keep this pulse check. And also continuing education, especially when it can be hard to especially with the political climate, just like you spread yourself so thin in trying to stay abreast of everything. And you, if you have a container, you can sort of like exhale. At least I can exhale a little bit knowing, well, if I miss the news today, I know somebody else in the group soak something up, right? And they can send and circle through in our group messages the crucial things, and that's how you really feel supported. So thank you all for sharing that. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and let's like look into the other key players in sexual health and wellness that none of us are certified in, but we at least know personally somebody who's certified in it, or know how to reach them, or know their value. So I'd love to start off with two that I quite frequently recommend out to. And then I'd love to hear your go-to referrals out to, and maybe give an example if one comes to you of a situation where you'd make that referral. Because sometimes the client will come to you and say, I know I need XYZ. And then you can be that, do the keep looking for the right analogy, be on the ground looking for be their search tool, I guess. But sometimes they don't know who they need, and this is where we can kind of think. So the one that's top of mind for me is a vulva dermatologist. And this is something that comes up for me because of the high number of misdiagnoses that I see come through my practice. And I have personal experience with, you've ruled out STIs, you've ruled out yeast infections, or the misdiagnosis is yeast infection after yeast infection or bacterial vaginosis, and something chronic's going on here. So a lot of people don't know that vulva dermatologists exist. And you can also look for a gynecologist that has a specialty in conditions like lichen sclerosis, which is what often gets misdiagnosed as a yeast infection. And if it's not caught early enough, then you can suffer architectural changes and loss of sexual function and loss of sexual ability to feel pleasure. And so this could be a whole nother podcast episode, but I'm bringing this in as one of the key players in sexual health and wellness, because you're likely going to encounter a couple or an individual who says, I'm experiencing pain during sex. And there's these umbrella terms like vulvodynia that just kind of describe this whole wide experience of pain during sex. And for many, you go years and years without understanding. And is it a skin condition, or is it dealing with your pelvic floor? So this is one of my go-tos. Look into these other areas of cause for this discomfort. So since I kind of hinted at pelvic floor, I'm going to toss this over to Dion, because I know you've got some insight here on what type of client would need a pelvic health physiotherapist, and potentially, I think, another therapist you want to chat about.
Yes, thank you. Yes, my best allies in this field is pelvic health physiotherapists they're an amazing bunch of clinicians, really, because they specializes in looking at the structural aspect of the pelvic health, um, uh, pelvic floor. Because, I mean, as a talk-based therapist, I'm not licensed to have a physical examination, etc. So the pelvic health physio will really look into the muscle and the skeletal um, area within the pelvic health floor that contributing to the issues like like vaginal pain, and they do um, exam around that area. They check whether structurally is there tightness there, is there issue with the tone of the pelvic floor. But of course, I don't want to scare people off. They're not going to do any physical examination when you're not ready. So yeah, just to put it out there, there. And sometimes our work overlap because of the education that they provide will also overlap with some of the education that we do, especially around pain management and how where pain comes from and what are the factors that are contributing to the pain and maintaining pain. But there are also, if they're really trained in the pelvic health and sexual health, of course, the education will really overlap. Another colleague that I work regularly is our occupational therapy colleague, especially occupational therapy colleague that are specializes in the field of sexual health. So they specializes in with occupational therapy. The focus is on maximizing the potential of your activities of daily living, including your sexual health. So one of the examples could be things like when I was working in the hospital and we were working with clients with stroke or elderly client with back pain, they will look into the ergonomics of intimacy. So they will help client to modify a certain position that's ergonomically safe for both of them. So that was really something when they came up like, oh, have you tried this pillow? Have you tried this position? No, please don't do that because it will hurt your knee. So yeah, so they do this kind of thing, and some have different specialities. So if they specialize in client with neurodiversity, they can do assessment around sensory assessment, for example, for the couples. So it really depends on what their interests are. So yeah, those two are my best allies, and sometimes although we overlap, but we always find different pocket of area that we can work collaboratively, and that's the word collaborative work is really important in this field. We can't work alone.
Thank you, Dion. Yeah, and I'll second that in terms of pelvic floor therapists. Even though it can feel a little confronting and you might be nervous about going into an experience where somebody is going to potentially do a pelvic exam and have to do some manual relaxation techniques. My experience with pelvic floor therapists has been so calming and relaxing, and you're in the driver's seat with a good pelvic floor therapist. You're leading it. It should never feel like you're on an exam table and you're having to bear through anything. I mean, that's the model of pelvic floor therapy is so it's centering safety and comfort to be able to do that work.
Yeah, what's interesting is sometimes my client will say, it works really well at the pelvic health physio office, but when I go home and then my partner tried to do it, uh, I, it shut up. It shut again. I can't do it. So sometimes I encourage, okay, why don't you bring your partner to the pelvic health physio, so then they can learn some of the tips and technique from the pelvic health physio in regarding to enhancing safety. And so the pelvic health physio will work together with the partner. Oh, so this is how you touch, this is how you approach things, and it becomes such a beautiful intimate work actually. So yes, they're
Yeah.
so safe that they're like the
Bring your partner in. I love that. Okay. Well, I'll throw in a couple more, and if you have if it sparks any examples for you, feel free to jump in. But I'd like to give a shout out to surrogate partner therapists. This is another type of hands-on therapy work where these practitioners are trained to do hands-on experimental therapy for intimacy issues. And my go-to organization is the International Professional Surrogate Association, or IPSA for short. And we even have some Sex Coach U graduates who either were IPSA certified first and then came through us, or who were or vice versa, decided to add that on. Similarly, I started at Sex Coach U, and I wanted to select a hands-on modality, and then after that, I chose sexological body work. So, sex coaching is primarily a neck up, a talk only. Well, I shouldn't say neck up. We're dealing with the body, but we're talk only. And then sex surrogates, surrogate partner therapy, sexological body workers, tantra massage therapists. Um, they're certified to do the hands-on work. So if you have a sex coach who is saying that they can provide these other services, this is a good question for you. Where did you get the other training? Because you didn't get it as a sex coach. There should be something else in their bio or on their website that's saying they got this separate training to do the hands-on work.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the difference between surrogate, sexological body workers?
Difference between the surrogate and the sexological bodywork?
Mm-hmm.
So in sexological bodywork, what I am certified in, the touch is one way, first and foremost. So it's not experiential in the way that the client will ever touch me back. So a lot of times with the sex bod work, the client is on a massage table, and we've definitely negotiated boundaries and made very clear goals. It's not going to be orgasm and pleasure focused in the way of like maybe somebody who's wanting to get a massage that is doesn't have a goal that's therapeutic. So going into sexological body work, we're definitely working with maybe some intimacy concerns that came up for them throughout sex coaching, and then the sex coaches said, okay, well, I think you do well to experience the guided touch of a sexological body worker. So number one, the touch is one way. Orgasm and pleasure is definitely present, but it might not be the goal. And how I differentiate is, for example, if I'm working with an individual who is struggling with erectile dysfunction or early ejaculation, and they've really done all of the talk only stuff and practices on their own and are still struggling, I could either, with a partner as well, similar to the occupational therapist or pelvic floor therapist, the partner can come in and I can demo some techniques and be there present to witness the breath work that they're doing, or the actual hands-on techniques, where putting a pin in all that for a second, going over to surrogate partner therapy, that touch can be two-way. So I can't remember the name of the movie. We watched it in Sex Coach U. Do you remember, Dion?
The session,
The
Helen Hunt.
Session. Helen Hunt. a magnificent movie which goes into a case of surrogate partner therapy where the client was disabled, and he really only experienced touch through his full-time care person, and he ended up hiring Helen Hunt as a sex surrogate who actually interacted with him and had sex with him and expanded what was possible for him in his disabilities. So sex surrogacy doesn't always include sex. It can include an array of sexual activity and explorations. It could be cuddling. It could be just so many different things. But there's always a container set and clear goals. It's not something that, oh, we've entered this practice and now we just see each other all the time without any end date. It's definitely very goal-oriented work in the way that sex coaching and body work is too. So those are the differences, I would say. So yeah, just to review, sex coaching, all of us here in this room, we're sex coaches. We also bring to the table different modalities. We're very skilled and knowledgeable in referring out. So to listeners out there who are thinking of, I have this thing and I've kind of been around the block with a gynecologist or urologist and they haven't been able to help me, a sex coach could be your first resource for getting to a specialist, or maybe getting all the help you need in the sex coaching realm. We can do a lot, but occasionally we do have to refer out to these others. So this kind of gives you a taste of what's out there, and we all work together as this beautiful network of health and wellness professionals. So beautiful. Well, love to hear your questions in the chat, and we'll definitely put some links into the show notes for places you can find and access these different sexology and sexual wellness professionals.
Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, send us some love by sharing, hitting subscribe, and leave a review. It really helps us connect to more incredible people like you. If you want to learn more about sex coaching or therapy, you can find us at sexandbreakfastpodcast.com, and be sure to follow us on Instagram at sexandbreakfastpodcast. The people helping us cook this all up are Michael Merle, creating our tasty tunes, dishing out our audio and video is Max Rainier, and our delectable visual designs by Brie Vilaubi.